to Robot Unicorn, hosted by my parents, Jess and Scott. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Today's episode is on something that's a little bit more challenging to talk about. Mm-hmm. And it depends on the situation that you, the listener, are going through. But we are going to talk about co-parenting, single parenting, divorce, conflict within a family between parents. Because first of all, we've had some questions about it. And so we've had some emails, and that was what originally added this one to our agenda.
Roster. Yep.
But also we feel like it would be helpful. And not even just for people who are separated or anything like that, or parenting on their own. I think some of the things that we're going to talk about today might actually be helpful for all parents to think about.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So to start, let's just get right to the heart of it. When parents first walk into your office and are in the midst of a separation, what is the single biggest fear they have about their kids? Because that's why they're typically seeing you. What's the worry that tends to keep them up at night?
Mm-hmm. It's if we separate, how will that impact the kids? Right? So I think, and actually I don't do couples work, so I can't speak to this in terms of couples work. That would have to have.
Yeah, we have other therapists that do that on our team.
So by the time someone's getting to me, they pretty much are like determined that they are not going to stay together. And it's like, but how will our kids be? Or they've already separated and they're trying to figure out how to navigate the kids. Because I just want to be clear about that. Like, I can't speak to the couples aspect of it just because that's not my expertise. But I do come in often when the separation's already happening or it's almost there and the parents kind of like, am I going to screw my kid up forever because I'm doing this?
Is that the big thing that is often the concern?
Yeah. And it's like in so many ways. Like I've seen it in, I'll just give some examples, like a single mom I worked with whose partner left and is just gone off the radar. Like we don't know what's going on there, right? Like this was many, many years ago. And now the mom is left with her children and like, how am I going to explain that we don't know what happened to dad, and how is that going to mess them up forever to have a father who's left? Or you have parents who like really want to work together. They're like, okay, we couldn't make it work in our marriage, but like we are committed to making this work for our kid. And like they want to come to sessions together, not to talk about their relationship, but to talk about the child. Or you have a single dad who's like similar situation to the mom. Like, so there's so many complexities and situations. There's high conflicts. So I just want to name that at the beginning of this episode is like, it's very hard to speak for what's going to be true in every single co-parenting situation, because a high conflict situation where the child is unsafe with one parent is totally different than like two parents who just want to co-parent and like do their very best for their child, right? Like there's just so many possible scenarios here.
Yeah. And I think we should also start by saying I think a lot of parents, in the research that I did for this episode, it seems like a lot of parents do worry about that. The fact that they are potentially going to mess up their child from either separating or staying together. Like they're they're worried about, a lot of parents are worried about different situations. But what I found was there's actually quite a bit of hope for parents to take a hold of and understand that it doesn't necessarily have to mess anything up. Like your child can still develop in a healthy way, and they can still have super positive outcomes later in life as long as they have that peaceful, predictable bond with at least one caregiver.
Yeah.
Preferably with both, but if that's not possible, it still leads to beneficial outcomes later in life. So if they have that, if there's one parent that's stable for the child, it seems like that's just an amazing thing. Mm-hmm. That relationship that they have is what.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's so much hope in that, is like to have that one person who's stable, who's reliable, who's consistent, who has the structure for them, shows the best long-term outcomes, no matter what. If you're in, and also I think a lot of people are like, should we stay together for the kids? And I think that is something that we wanted to talk about too.
That's
right?
actually my next question.
Oh, is it? Okay. So why don't you give me the question? We'll discuss.
Like you said, there's a pervasive myth that staying together for the kids is always the best option. But actually the research is overwhelming that it's not divorce itself, but ongoing parental conflict that is the primary source of harm for children. So it's the conflict between parents. That's the primary source of harm. From a child perspective, what does it feel like to live in that high conflict war zone, even if the family is technically intact? And war zone also there was so much research on this. Like it's hard to, it was quite fascinating for me, but also war zone, that term could mean high conflict as in like parents are literally yelling at each other and screaming at each other and super angry and verbal, or it could be like the Cold War version where they're ignoring each other and like rolling their eyes. Yeah, they're giving each other the silent treatment, all that stuff. It's, in terms of the research, it didn't seem to differentiate between that is still conflict, a high conflict situation, and that is what harms a child.
Like, I love to think about it as like, in all relationships, there's going to be a conflict, in all marriages, romantic relationships, there'll be conflict at some point, right? But are you able to work together as a team to try and resolve that conflict? Is that conflict like, for a period of time, but then it gets better? Like, so it's not to say like always just split up as soon as there's conflict, because it's bad for the, people need the nuance to be brought in.
Fair enough.
Right. So it's not to say.
I'm not saying.
As soon as there's any conflict, just end divorce. It because it's better for your kids, right? Of course, every relationship sometimes has periods of conflict that you can work through and you can get through and be stronger on the other side. So it's not about that. But it is about if you in your heart, and like the same with your partner, are like, we know this isn't going to work. This isn't working. We've been trying to make it work. It doesn't work. We're fighting constantly, or we give each other silent treatment. It's toxic. It's unhealthy. But we've decided it's better to be in this toxicity all the time for the kids. Yeah,
because we're together.
That's where I think the research likes to invite parents to say, like, you don't have to stay together for the kids. And actually, if your home is constantly like filled with toxic fighting or silent treatments or whatever, your child's going to be in a constant state of alarm, dysregulation. Like we've said this on many, many episodes before, a child can only be as regulated as the most dysregulated parent. So if both parents are constantly fighting with each other, your kids are going to always be in the state of alarm and dysregulation. And in that case, it's not better to say, well, at least they have two parents who still live together.
Yeah, right.
If separating would lead to a stress reduction in both parents, like less fighting, less conflict, and you could actually start to just take care of your kids and provide that consistent environment that you need. And so for some parents, hearing that research is the permission slip that they need to say, I've already known this isn't going to work, and I'm putting myself back into this environment where I'm fighting every single day. And that helps me have permission to say, maybe it's okay if we separate and we can just focus on giving the kids what they really need.
Yeah.
And we can't do it together.
I do think, at least what we heard in our communities too, is it's always better to stay together. Yeah. There was no nuance in that at all. And the research proves quite the opposite, that it is not always better. Doesn't necessarily mean, again.
Yeah. Just split up with your partner. Yeah. We're not saying that.
No, but again, it's better for a child to live in a stable home. Mm-hmm. It's actually, so I wrote this down somewhere because I liked the line. Studies show that kids do better developmentally with low or less conflict. And family structure is mostly irrelevant if they live in a constant war zone.
Yeah.
Family war zone, even a Cold War zone.
Yeah. You know what I also think? Like, outside of the fact that when you're fighting or silent treatmenting or whatever, and this is like long-term ongoing, things aren't getting better with your partner, it's just always a struggle. Of course, it's going to make your kids dysregulated because they can't like find their calm from you. But I also think in those situations, it's showing your child what a relationship looks like. You know, if everything we always talk about, it's like you're the model for your child. And so something I think about, and sometimes this is the deciding factor for some of the people that I've worked with. It's like, I didn't want to model that to my kids and to show them that like, that's what they should expect in a relationship, because I knew every day when they watched us interact or they watched us fight or they watched us give each other silent treatment, that they were learning that that is what they should tolerate from a future partner. And I didn't want that for them. And that's why I left. So I think that's like, not only are your kids dysregulated, but they also are looking to that as the example. And sometimes that's the motivation a parent has for deciding to leave in that situation.
This is sort of related to the last question, which you didn't answer, by the way. What does it feel like to live in that for the child?
Well,
but a core concept that you talk about often is attachment theory. So you don't say attachment theory, but you talk about attachment and bonding and everything.
Always.
And the idea that a secure bond with a parent acts as a kind of psychological immune system for a child. So if they have that bond, it helps them understand how to regulate their emotions and how to have relationships with others. Can you break down what that actually means in this context and why separation can feel like such a huge threat to a child's their fundamental sense of safety?
Yeah, and I'm thinking back also to the question about like, what does it feel like, right? And I think, yeah, that's very related to attachment. Like if you think about as a parent, when you're in that situation and you're constantly fighting, you're at war with your spouse, and your own attachment needs are not being met within your relationship, and you're feeling constantly frantic and frazzled, it's really hard to pour out then and give your child what they need if you're not getting what you need. And in fact, like you're getting the opposite of what you need all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really difficult to then show up as like this loving, present, calm person if within your own body as a parent, you're frantic and frazzled and dysregulated all the time, right? Like how can you do it? It's like not even, like it's very, very difficult. And so then the child starts to feel frantic and frazzled inside of their body, right? It's the same way you're feeling. And then what we know is when a child starts to feel frantic, they start to worry about their attachment, their relationship with their caregiver. They start to engage in behaviors that are a way for them to like bring you close, but they're often look like whining, crying, misbehavior, challenging behavior at school. And a lot of like, this is why I have a lot of parents who are going through this who end up seeing me, because after the fact, you know, their child's struggling with all this behavior. But what I see is a child with a very alarmed body who is trying everything they can to get their attachment needs met. Just they're doing it through this behavior that also kind of makes us want to push them away more, right? And then so the whole family system just starts to crumble. And that's usually where I'm coming into a family by that point. And it's about trying to restore that sense of safety and attachment, like getting that relationship back so that the child can soften and not feel so frantic towards their parent and get back into right relationship with them, right? And so all of that, I think, answers your question of like, if a child's attachment needs aren't being met, it's going to come out in behavior. It's going to come out in them being alarmed. It's going to come out in like all sorts of ways, but it also starts with you. If you are constantly not getting your attachment needs met, it's really, really hard to pour that out to someone else too. Right. And that's why I have so much compassion for parents in these situations, because it's like, it is so hard to give your kids what they need.
Model like
when you're going through it, right?
Yeah. That's probably the most stressful thing you could go through in life, right? Especially if you have kids involved too. It's very complicated.
It's already so hard. And then you really just like your body in like a fight or flight mode, like it just wants to take care of itself, like just wants to take care of you. But then you have these children who also need you. And it's like, it is very difficult on a parent. So I just want to acknowledge all of that, because like, I think a lot of parents who are in this situation who listen are like, well, how am I supposed to be calm? That's like, you're right. And so that's where it's like doing your own work, sometimes going to your own therapist, figuring out what you need to get your own needs met. It's actually like the first step, because it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard, these situations. So just acknowledging that.
Yeah. I think we should try and get a little bit more practical here.
Okay.
So based on what I was reading in the research, and you can correct me if I misunderstood anything here, but the number one job for parents during this kind of situation is conflict shielding. So beyond the obvious, don't yell in front of your kids, what are some of the more subtle ways parents expose their children to conflict, like using them as messengers or making negative comments? And what damage does that actually do? And by the way, I'll just mention, in pretty much all the articles I read on, let's say, this topic, they said that this is essentially a non-negotiable thing. Like, parents should be conflict shielding, so they're not using... They're trying to keep their kids completely out of the fact that their relationship with their spouse or significant other is ruptured, and not involve them, not make them, messengers or,
Yeah, in the most ideal world scenario, you're showing up as a united front to your children, and they're not a part of your conflict, right? Like, so
that's an ideal world.
Ideal world, right? That's like, I feel like we always say that, ideal world and then reality. But, it makes me think, in my master's degree, I actually did a presentation on this topic. It just came back to my mind, on triangulation in families and how that can really happen. And basically what you would imagine is like, you have you and your partner, and then all of a sudden you bring a child into it, and the child kind of becomes the center point of like these fights that you're having, right? And so one partner's like telling the child, oh, you never believe what dad said today, like that. And then the other partner's like, could you, like, we're just imagining a heterosexual relationship here, but like, could you go tell mom that when she said that earlier, that really, that was rude and she shouldn't have said that. And all of a sudden we're putting the child in the center, right? Or even in a co-parenting dynamic where the child's going to like dad's house and like, hey, make sure you tell me if like daddy brings any girls over to the house, and like, tell me if he cleans the kitchen, like, does he have any food in the fridge? Like, and then the child's like, oh no, he didn't. Ugh, typical, like, classic dad, never has any food in the fridge, right? Like, it's so easy to get into this dynamic where now your child becomes parentified in a way where it's like the child becomes the other, like,
almost a spy,
almost like a spy or like another adult in the situation. And you're putting adult conversations, adult needs, adult tensions onto the child because they just happen to be there. But the child shouldn't be the person that you're processing any of this with. Like, they can know it's hard. They can know you're struggling. They can know that like things are tricky. That's fine. That's human. You don't have to pretend like everything's perfect all the time. But they're not the ones who you're processing like, oh, dad did this, and this, and that's why we all hate him. And, because it's very easy to get in situations where you start to pin a child against one parent or the other, and, or you put too much responsibility on them. They feel a lot of anxiety around that. So that is very important. And I agree. I think that like in any research we talk about, it's how we're shielding our children and how we're making sure that they don't feel responsible for the marital conflict that's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the reality is, I think parents are a major part of a child's self-worth too, right? And they look up to their parents. They should think that their parents are like the best people in the world.
Yes.
So as soon as you try pitting them against the other one, I can see like making them kind of the spy for you or the messenger for you. That's pretty dangerous and can be damaging for even the child's self-worth.
And also like making sure your child doesn't think it's about them.
Yeah.
Right. So I've had situations where a child's like, oh, like they know their parents are fighting, but they don't know what it's about. And they're like, oh, it's probably because I never listen. Right. And then the child's like, no, they're probably fighting because I never listened to them. And, I'm always in trouble. That's why they're getting a divorce. So we want to also make sure we're asking, like, you don't have to give your children every single detail, right? But you want to make sure that they know that your marriage, your relationship, whatever's going on there is not their fault. And it doesn't have to do with the way that they behave. Like, this is an adult thing. and like they're like, you love them, they're good. This is not about their behavior.
How truthful should you be with your child about, let's say, even what, because they're going to have questions about why are you separating? Like, why are you not living together anymore? Or why are you so mad at each other? How honest can or should you be with your child? If there was a certain, like one person did something that now caused these two to get separated, how do you, let's say, not pit them against one parent, but also be honest at the same time and make sure, hey, like, let's say the community is going to know, and potentially other parents and kids at school will even know. So, but then if you don't really tell your child all of everything, all of a sudden they're going to have other kids telling them something that they're like, wait, what? I didn't know that. So like, how do you, I don't know. That seems like
it's a very broad question, but I think, yes, because I think it's also like age appropriateness for something. So for example, like what you're going to tell a 3-year-old might be different than what you're going to tell like a 13-year-old. Right. And I think it is actually important to say that, because I've had parents who are like, I heard that you have to be honest. And then they like told their 5-year-old like every detail about something that was going to be way too much for their 5-year-old to process. Right.
I guess more what I'm wondering is, okay, we talk about it in an age appropriate way, but let's say if a separation is due to the fact that one person did something specific that was the most hurtful thing that they could possibly do to their other parent, how do you explain, like, this is what happened, but also not make that child pissed off at that other parent? Or is it okay that they're upset with that parent, but is it fair to, like, for the other parent to explain that to the child? And like, it's also through probably a very emotional and biased lens too then. I don't know. It's a complicated thing, right?
I wouldn't explain it on your own unless you're like totally have to, like in the scenario I'm saying where it's like the one parent literally is gone. Like then you have no choice. So you have to explain that the parent left, right? I think what the child needs to really know in these situations is like, am I still safe? Am I still loved? What's changing for me in my life? And like, is this person who I've always loved, like the person that I know and that I want to continue to always love? And do they still love me? Right. So a child's very self-centered in this situation, which is, just one of the things about being a child. And so it's important to keep that in mind. Oh, and the other thing a child really needs to know is like, am I to blame? Like, did I make this happen? I think that as children get older, like the late childhood kind of tween stage, we can be honest with them, like with facts, but we don't need to give them every single detail of what happened, right? Of
course not.
And I mean, it sounds obvious, but...
Okay, here, I will pose an example then. Let's say I cheat on you with someone and you're like, we can't repair this. You want to have a separation. We agree to do that and everything. And then our oldest, who's 8, is like, well, why? Why are you doing this? Like, what? How would you explain that to her that I've done this thing?
Okay, in my ideal world.
Or should I be doing it with you?
Yeah, in my ideal world, we would do that together.
Okay.
It would be a conversation that we would have together so that it doesn't look like I'm pinning her against you and I'm having this private conversation with her that you're not a part of.
Is it realistic though? Like, let's say if I've done something that's so hurtful to you.
Well, let's back it up. That conversation doesn't have to happen the moment that it's happened, right?
Right.
I think it's important to like say that because oftentimes in like the heat of the moment, this is when parents tell their children like all sorts of things. And then later they're like, oh, I wish I never said that, but it's too late because I was like so frazzled and so upset that I told them that daddy did this terrible thing. And now I'm like, that's how I told them. And now I have to deal with that, right? So like, I just like to encourage parents, like not every conversation has to happen when you're trying to figure stuff out. So like,
yeah, but it could take years to figure it all out.
Right.
Though, right?
But like, you can give yourself a month or something to just kind of settle yourself a little bit. I'll give you a couple scenarios. But one thing that my therapist has always said is like, think of 3 scenarios and then just choose which one makes the most sense and you respect the most. So whenever you have a hard situation, think of 3 things you could do and then just choose one of them. And I always really like that because there's always multiple ways of responding to things. It doesn't always have to be like this one way. So in an ideal world, I think the parents would be able to show that united front and have that conversation together to be like, look, we are having struggles because things like cheating don't happen for no reason, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we are having struggles in our marriage. A lot of people have struggles in their marriage. It has nothing to do with you guys. This is something that we are going through as part of the struggles that we were having. And then maybe you would explain like we were having a lot of struggles with mom. I wasn't feeling, I was having a hard time myself and I made a big mistake and I was talking with another person, and I want you to hear that from me because you might hear it from somebody else. And I need you to know it from me before you hear it from somebody else that this happened. Right. And I would in a self-aware parent situation, they're self-aware enough to be like, likely this child's going to find out. I would rather it be from me. It's like not the uncle making some flippant comment at Christmas or a cousin or whatever, right?
Honestly, kids at school.
Or a friend or whatever.
Usually as parents, other parents from school, and then their kids will know, which will be likely friends with your kids. So I just foresee kids learn a lot from school. Yes, absolutely.
And the best in that situation, I think, would be for the parent who did the thing to take ownership and be like, this is what happened. It wasn't about you. I love you. Like, this is a mistake that I made. And now because this has happened, this is the consequences. And not pinning it on the other partner to be like, she won't let me come back in the house or whatever it is, right? Yeah. Like, again, trying to be that united front as much as you can. And even then, if your kid's a little bit older and can understand like what cheating means or whatever, like that will be more complex. But for even like the 8-year-olds in that situation, it's going to be, okay, well, what about me? Like, what does that mean for me?
Yeah.
And so I think parents should keep that in mind too, of like, you can tell them all these things that you did, but at the end of the day, the younger kids are going to be like, okay, but what about me? Like, what does that mean for my life? Am I in trouble? Is it my fault? Where am I going to sleep? How does this look? And so making it a lot more about, and this is what your life's going to be like now. And like, let's talk about it. And yes, even though we're not living in the same house, we both still care about you. And we want to make sure that you're doing as well as you can. And like making it about caring for the child versus like telling them every single thing about the mistake that you made, and keeping it open for like, this will be a topic that I'm sure will continue to come up in our lives. Like, I want you to know that you can ask me questions. Like, I made a mistake. I did something wrong and I shouldn't have done that. And now like, this is what's happening. And I just want you to know you can ask me questions and we can talk about it. But my love for you like does not change. And I think having those conversations will be helpful, whether or not it's like together or you have to have them separate because you can't do it together.
Yeah. Yeah, because what you're saying sounds very ideal and logical, and like it's all going super.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, we're just separating, and yeah, I feel really bad, but I feel like a lot of situations are not that easy.
No, absolutely. Again, that's like the ideal scenario, but sometimes it is like one parent has to have that conversation, right?
Yeah. Well, I just think about it in terms of the conflict shielding and how you actually have that conversation without involving them in the conflict, but trying to give them the reason that the conflict is even happening. But again, you're not trying to pit them against, and I mean, they're allowed to have their feelings about the parent who made the mistake anyway. But I just feel like if you're in an emotional state, even a month later, they're still going to be emotional about it, right? I don't know. That's a very challenging.
Right. And that's why I'm like hesitant to be like, here's a one size fits all of like how you should have this, because it's very case dependent on like what's happening. And so I'm very mindful of like, I don't want to say something and then a parent does that. It's like totally backfires on them, but I think that's why I keep coming back to like, what do children need? What do they need to understand? They also do need to be able to ask questions and get honest answers, because sometimes the answer that they have in their mind is far, far, far worse because they are very imaginative and they have lots of like ideas of what could have happened than what actually happened. Right. So that is why you do need to be able to answer them factually when they ask something without giving every single detail of what happened, because they will likely just come to their own conclusion then, and that conclusion might be like totally off base or way
completely
worse
wrong,
than what happened,
or they blame themselves for
themselves. So like, know that kids are going to be curious, they're going to have questions, and when we can give them factual, honest answers without making them feel like now they have to choose, or now they have to hate their one parent, or they're unloved by the one parent's awful, like just trying to be neutral about it, while still like, you can let them see you cry. You can let them see that it's really tough, but they just need to know they're not going to be alone in that. That's like the real key, I think.
And it's not their job to fix anything.
Right. And that, like, for especially, I think for sensitive kids, they often like come in like, if I could just get my parents back together, you know, and like you see them like try so hard and be like, hey, like, this is an adult responsibility. This is between us. We are going to figure this out. Like, your job is to be a kid and to still enjoy your life, still go to school, still have all these predictable things. And like, you try and like give them the predictability, the routine, the structure as much as they've always had it, as much as you can in this new way. And reminding them their role versus your role, I think, is important as well.
Okay, so let's maybe veer in a slightly different direction here and talk about the predictability. Because, what you're saying, that's what the research says too, making sure they have predictable home or homes. And there was talk of co-parenting, which is kind of like the gold standard, which you were explaining. Parents are kind of cooperating. They maybe don't get along, but it's not like they're in conflict when they're trying to make parenting decisions. But then there's also this thing called parallel parenting, which, if I understand correctly, it's essentially two completely separate homes. The parents do not interact in terms of making decisions, most decisions about their children when they're in their respective homes. So they don't get to choose what the other parent does with the child in their home. And is that usually in like high conflict situations where you would see that?
Yeah, some high conflict situations for sure. Is definitely much more stressful when you don't know what's going on in the other home, right?
Right. But is it real? The thing is it realistic if it's such a high conflict relationship that the parents have to expect them that they're going to co-parent and make decisions together?
No, like, I would say the parallel parenting, if anything, like, I actually see that in my work a lot.
Okay.
Where I'll have one parent come to me and they're like, well, the other parent's not interested in doing the work together. They would love for it to happen, but it's just not going to happen, right? And then I think in that case, it's like, you do the best you can with the time you have for your child. And the one thing you just want to make sure of is that you know that they're safe at the other person's home, right? If you have a fear that they're not safe in the other person's home, that's another conversation.
Yeah, of course. That's, a separate thing. What I'm talking about more is parenting your child, let's say creating the best outcomes in life for them, doing the least harm on them.
Yeah. Then it's about the predictability of like, when I come to, let's say, dad's house, I know these are the things that we do, right?
Yeah, these are his rules. And
there's that predictability, which gives that feeling of safety to the child. It's like, when I go to dad's house, I know what it looks like. I know we do one movie night. I know this is what screen time looks like. I know when he goes to work. You know, I know how he tucks me in at night. There's that consistency, that routine. And I know when I go to my other parents' house, this is what it looks like. It's totally different than dad's house, but I know what it looks like. And there's like some consistency to it. I think that's the best thing that you can do for children. Like, the hardest thing is if they're going house to house and they have no idea what to expect every time they're at either house. That's going to make them really dysregulated. Right. So I think it goes back to always, like, in every conversation we have, is like, we know what kids need. They need structure, they need routine, they need time to play, time to rest, time to like cry in the arms of someone who loves them. If we can give children what they need and they're in two homes, we're still giving them what they need, right? So that I think when we can always take it back to like these core things we know from like decades and decades of research kids need, and just focus on that like simplifies things quite a bit.
It does, but it's kind of, it's easy to say when you're not super stressed out about it.
Simple, but not easy.
Okay, here's a little bit more nuanced topic for you,
Love it.
or question. The challenges of co-parenting or parallel parenting are often magnified when a child is neurodivergent. Consistency in routines and sensory environments becomes even more critical. Do you have any specific advice for parents trying to create that comfortable consistency across two homes for a child with ADHD or autism?
Yeah. I mean, my most ideal advice is like, can you, even if you can't talk about anything else, but like, can you agree that you want what's best for your child in terms of like supporting them in their neurodivergence, like their unique needs, right? I'll have parents who will come to coaching with me who are like, every other topic's off limits. Like we don't even want to work on the relationship outside of this, but we do want strategies for supporting our child because we know they have unique needs and like we need to have a plan for what we're doing. And I think that's so beautiful and like respectable when parents can come together for that. I think even things of like, hey, like we don't have to talk about anything else, but I just want you to know that, you know, I tried doing this and it really helped him. And like, is there certain ways that you can try, like whether it's an email, like sometimes in high conflict situations, like texting's not an option, you know, that opens a can of worms. It's an email or it's something where you can say like, can we possibly be receptive to each other on this one topic because we want to support him and or her and they
I think there are
these
apps
unique needs, right?
specifically for
Yeah, or
co-parenting.
apps for co-parenting, yeah.
They even have, like I was looking into it and there's apps that even have like a tone meter and they kind of, they look at what you've written and try and parse, okay, what is your tone
right
in what you're saying right now? And then some of them are even like monitored. You can have another third party present in communication too, if you really need it.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's helpful because there are certain things that if you're able to communicate on, that's going to be most helpful for your child, especially you throw neurodivergence into the mix and like that structure and routine becomes even more important. You don't have, like if we go back to our temperaments episode, like the more flexible child, like your child really needs it, right? So it's like, can we work together for this thing?
Yeah.
And sometimes the answer is still no, right? And then it's, again, doing the best you can in your own home and knowing that structure and routine and love and support and repair that you give them does make a huge difference. Like it does matter. Like parents are like, oh, but then they go there for 3 days and they don't get it. Well, the time you have with them matters and it makes a big difference. Children need that one person who shows up for them, is consistent for them, loves them. And like that is shown to have huge long-term outcomes. So like,
yeah, the research backs all of that up. Like it was for both cooperative co-parenting situations and the parallel parenting situation where the parents literally can't even talk to each other.
Yeah.
Having stable, loving homes, even if it's two separate ones, still it showed that it has long-lasting, incredibly positive effects on the children.
Yeah. And the same for single parents who don't have a partner who's around, right? Like you have that opportunity again to show that consistent,
what
stable,
that shows,
loving. Yeah.
Honestly, is that if you only had one super consistent, stable home and then the other one lacks rules and all that, but then you end up going back to the other one and you feel loved there and the child perceives that they're receiving love, that has profoundly positive impact on their life. So even as a single parent, it's the same thing. You have that impact on them.
Yeah. So I think that's the
gold,
huge hope in it all, right?
I wrote this down. Like the gold standard is to achieve as much synchronicity of parenting as is possible given your relationship.
Right.
So the more you can do, the easier it will be to have, let's say, the more positive outcomes. I won't get too much into this, but we talk about this in the next episode as well. But the research also highlights how socioeconomic stress is a massive factor, with financial strain directly impacting a parent's ability to be emotionally available. This isn't something a parent can just decide to go fix, especially the research was showing that apparently if like a mom is the default caregiver and maybe spends more time with the kids after separation, they tend to have a 25 to 50% reduction in the income that they can bring in. So it's not something they can just go out and decide to fix because all of a sudden they're doing all of this work on their own. So how can a parent who is potentially working 2 jobs and worried about rent still create moments of connection and buffer their child from that stress when it's kind of all consuming?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's about the repair. If there's been a rupture, it's about the little rituals that you can build in. So even if you're working and they're at like after school care and, you know, all these things, like what are the little moments of connection that you can find? Those are the ones that really mean the most to any child, right? So is it at dinner, you try and ask them the highlights and lowlights of their day? Is it bedtime where you give them some extra snuggles and lay with them until they fall asleep every night? And that's like what you do for a while because that's the time of day where they're the most chatty and they want to talk to you. Is it something that you do at breakfast or like a song that you listen to while you get ready in the morning? Like, I really think it's about building in like the small rituals, little structures in the day, little things that the children can look forward to that don't have to be crazy big and can just provide that little consistency. And like, I think those are the things that really make a child feel safe and build those memories and that relationship. And it doesn't have to be overcomplicated.
Yeah, for sure.
And it goes back to like what I said before of like what we know to be true about children. They need play. They need to feel loved. They need structure. They need to splash in puddles. They, you know, and so
they don't need expensive toys.
Like don't feel like you have to overcompensate for it. It's the way that you show up that's going to make the biggest difference. And, you know, I've seen so many single parents do that incredibly. And so don't tell yourself that you won't be able to do it because you don't have a partner. Like I really believe that. I mean, I've seen kids who have 2 parents and they've got tons of money who can't show up for them in the same way that like a single mom shows up for her kids. Right. So yep. I just feel like people, like, we need to give ourselves grace and take away whatever stigma is there, even like internalized.
For sure. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we can start wrapping this up now. We have covered a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. For parents listening right now who feel potentially completely overwhelmed by it all, maybe they're going through separation, what is the one core principle you want them to hold on to? The one thing.
Always the one thing.
If they can do one thing right, what do you hope that is?
Okay, and then I have a question for you.
Sure.
I think the one thing you can do is just continue to try to show up for your child to be their safe space in all of it and make sure that they know that it's not about them, that they didn't do anything wrong, that they're loved, and that even when life is tough, like you're going to try and be on their team and work it out with them. Like they're not losing you. Yeah. Both parents, like they're not losing you. You're always still there for them. Life's just going to look different. I think if you can do that, no matter what else is going on, the child's going to feel safe and cared for and like have that secure base to fall back on. I think that's huge. My one thing is conflict shielding, which is related to yours because it's kind of in the best interest, the most loving thing you can do, right? So, well, actually, the question I was going to ask you was, and we can cut this if you don't want to say it, but like as a child who grew up in a very conflict home, right? And I think it's fair to say your parents later got divorced, but not when you were a child. Yeah. What is the one thing you think, like of all the things that could have helped you? I'm sure you can name a million, but like what's one thing that you think would have helped you in those situations? Actually, I will say the one thing that probably helped was staying at my grandparents' maybe not most weeks, but often. Mm-hmm. So you actually kind of lived in 2 homes in that way. Yeah, I for months at a time would live with my grandparents, or me and my siblings would. Mm-hmm. And what did that provide you with that you didn't have at home?
Well, it's definitely that structure. It was far more structured in both. So we would usually spend most of our time on the farm, my grandparents' farm. And then sometimes we would go to our other grandparents in town. But either one, they were very structured, and they were still very loving to all of us and took care of all of our needs and everything. Like anytime we ever needed anything, they would be there to help us.
So you, I think, are a prime example of you had one home that had structure or one place that had structure and then another place that didn't. But the place that had structure still stayed with you, even though the other place didn't.
Yep.
Right? And so I think that's like really hopeful for a lot of people who are in that situation. Like I am imagining the people listening to this episode are the people providing the structure, and then sometimes the other parent isn't, right?
Yep.
But to say that matters and is going to really be this huge safeguard for your child throughout their life, I hope is hopeful for them.
Yeah, because I would say my grandparents, very imperfect, but provided the real necessities for us in general. So I think it could have been a lot different if we did not have that, where we were living essentially at our grandparents for months at a time.
Yeah. And you had the structure. So yeah, it doesn't mean it was perfect, but like you had some things you could rely on when life felt tough. And I think that's huge for kids and hopefully hopeful for anyone listening.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to add one last question that's a little bit different, but because this is a far more challenging life scenario that a lot of, or some people go through, a lot of parents go through, I wanted to ask, when should a parent be concerned that their child's struggles are more than just a normal adjustment to divorce? And what are some red flags for a school-age child or teenager that tell a parent, okay, it's time, we should probably look for some professional help? Or should they just, if they can, immediately get professional help?
I mean, if you can, and I would say not even necessarily for the kids, but if you can for yourself, find a therapist who can kind of support you through the process and make sure that like you can show up for your kids in the way that they need. I think that's great. And I would definitely say, and then I would also say, if you think your kid needs help, then try and see if you can find it. And
is there like a way to tell if, hey, this is just a normal adjustment to a huge life change, or this is a real problem that we're seeing and it needs to be, we need some help?
I would say I would be concerned if their behavioral issues are impacting the quality of life. Like, so it's one thing, like they're having big meltdowns and they're having struggles, but like your child like can't go to school anymore. They can't hang out with their friends. Like they're shutting down. They're like not enjoying life the way that they used to. Like those would be concerns for me. Another concern I would have is if a child like refuses to talk about it. Like, sure, if it's been like a month and they're not ready, but if it's been going on for a while and they refuse to talk about what's going on, like that tells me they're pretty defendant and like they're struggling with something. They don't want to talk about it. Like if they haven't cried about it, like I actually would rather a child who's like crying, saying this is really hard and, you know, I miss the way things were. At least then you have a child who's vulnerable and like talking to you. But if a child's like not at the point where they can talk to you about it, or they like just get really silly and like, and this is like ongoing, real anger, aggression, impacting their grades, like inability to concentrate at school. All of those things would be, to me, signs that support might be needed.
Is that not potentially, does that not go hand in hand with that adjustment, sort of regardless of it being
like I'm talking
a deeper
like
issue, or?
Yeah, but I'm talking like long term. Like it's one thing if that's happening for a little bit and then you're getting settled into your routine and your child's doing better. But if you're getting settled into your new routine and like otherwise like things are pretty settled and this is still continuing on, then I would say like, why not? Like if you can reach out for help, why not?
Yeah.
And just even if your parental instincts are like, I think my child's really struggling in a way that I like,
or if you feel like you
it's
really
beyond my support, right?
Yeah, if you feel like you really don't know how to handle the situation.
Yeah. Then if you can, why not kind of thing is what I think. And it's not necessarily enrolling your child straight away into child therapy. Like sometimes kids don't need it. Like if their parents are consistent, like they're showing up, the structure stays there. Some children are actually like just okay. And like they don't necessarily need therapy about it. So it's also trying not to project onto them being like, this is so hard for you. And for sure you can't handle it. Right. Like, so we want to be very mindful of projecting. Sometimes I think like parents will be like, I have to get them in therapy right away. And then it like signals to the child like, oh, this is like a way bigger deal than I even thought. And I should probably be stressed about it because now I'm in therapy and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
I would imagine you probably also have to be in communication with their teacher.
Yes.
Understand.
Talk to the rest of their support system.
Yeah.
You know, call on if there's a healthy grandparent who can support, if there's friends who can step in and provide structure. Like it doesn't just have to be you. I think that's the other thing we didn't talk about is that if you're going through this is where the support system can like play a really nice role and be a really healthy part of it.
Okay. This was challenging because I feel like there's so many. I feel like we did not give too many concrete. Here's how we resolve this because there's so many different possible scenarios here.
Well, and that's honestly like really intentional on my end because I don't want to tell parents like do this when you don't know the complexities of what's going on.
Right.
So
every situation is different and
be much easier in a way if you're like, this is the situation and the parent is here and we're like talking them through it versus like kind of abstract with like thousands of different possible scenarios.
Because we've received a few different emails that I'm trying to, that were
but like summing it up.
Similar enough, but there's still, every situation is different. The reasons that it happened are different.
But summing it up to like knowing what children need and being that safe person, like, I mean, once again, we're back to like everything. Yeah. So I think that's like the simplicity, I guess, of what we teach here is that everything kind of comes back to those core principles, even like more complicated situations like this.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me good questions.
Did you like them?
I think they were good. Yeah.
Good.
All right.
Hey, thank you so much for being here and listening to this episode today. It means the world to us to have you here. If this conversation was helpful for you, it would mean a lot if you could like and subscribe. That just shows us if the conversation is meaningful and helpful and helps it get out to more people. Also, I just wanted to let you know that every week we have a new episode drop. And if you want to be notified when that happens, just hit the little bell icon. Again, thank you so much for being here and we will talk to you again next week.